Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes U.S. campus anti-Semitism debate reinforces perception universities have become havens for radical thinking. Harvard staff defend embattled head Claudine Gay amid anti-Semitism row. Biden's 2024 dilemma, U.S. economy looks solid, but voters still not feeling it. Urgent action needed to fix school funding inequality, major review finds. Rose-colored recovery, study says parents don't grasp extent of learning loss. U.S. campus anti-Semitism debate reinforces perception universities have become havens for radical thinking. The Globe and Mail. Last week, 3 university presidents faced questioning from Capitol Hill on anti-Semitism and freedom of expression, and their responses have led to calls for their resignations. Their answers were seen as legalistic, convoluted, and evasive, reinforcing the perception that these universities were isolated from broader public views and were havens for outre political and social viewpoints. The most high-profile victim of this perception was Elizabeth McGill, former law clerk to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and advocate of free speech, who resigned from her position as president of the University of Pennsylvania on Saturday. The 3 university presidents sought to defend their students' rights to support Palestinian rights without defending anti-Semitism, but their answers were lost in nuance and equivocation. This comes at a time when prestigious universities are being seen as swanky bastions of privilege, islands of progressive, if not radical, thinking, and institutions of indoctrination rather than instruction. These universities are grappling with their purpose, with some arguing that they have forgotten what they were invented to do. In addition, demands from students that educational leaders take public positions on the issues of the day coincide with rising college tuitions and parents questioning the value of their investment. Harvard staff defend embattled head Claudine Gay amid anti-Semitism row. Al Jazeera. Over 500 faculty members at Harvard University have signed a petition supporting University President Claudine Gay after she faced criticism for her appearance at a congressional hearing on rising anti-Semitism. The petition argues that firing Gay would be contrary to Harvard's commitment to academic freedom and calls for the university to defend the independence of the university. Gay has faced criticism for failing to give a clear answer as to whether calls for the genocide of Jews would violate university policy. More than 70 U.S. lawmakers have called for the removal of Gay and her counterparts at the University of Pennsylvania and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Biden's 2024 dilemma, U.S. economy looks solid, but voters still not feeling it. Associated Press. U.S. President Joe Biden is struggling to convince Americans of the strength of the U.S. economy. Although the country's economic indicators are positive, falling unemployment, low inflation, and an increase in jobs, public perception of the economy remains negative. Experts and pollsters say the disparity between economic reality and public perception could impact Biden's chances of re-election next year. Biden's messaging has shifted to highlighting price cuts for food and fuel, lower insulin costs, and blaming corporations for exploiting the pandemic to raise prices. However, Republicans are dismissing the positive economic data and focusing on public opinion. Analysts have suggested social media and the pandemic's impact on people's lives have distorted public perception of the economy. It is also possible that the loss of government aid has left people materially poorer, despite the additional income it provided. Another factor is the rise in prices caused by companies taking advantage of geopolitical events. Urgent action needed to fix school funding inequality, major review finds. ABC. A review of school resourcing in Australia has called for public schools to be fully funded to combat inequality and for all students to be regularly screened for additional support. The review found that the gap between privileged students and those at disadvantaged schools was growing and that inequality was entrenched. It also found that almost all public schools were not funded to the school resourcing standard, while non-government schools were funded at or above their full government funding level. The review also recommended that teachers receive more targeted support and mentoring, and that incentives be provided for highly effective teachers to work in schools with complex needs. The recommendations come ahead of negotiations on how schools will be funded under a new national agreement. Rose-colored recovery, study says parents don't grasp extent of learning loss. Yahoo! Parents are little concerned about lasting damage from the pandemic and typically think their children are doing well in school, a view that researchers say is belied by dismal state and national test scores, according to a new paper. The 2022 National Assessment of Educational Progress showed historic declines in math and flat performance in reading. According to this year's spring test results, pandemic recovery remains elusive for some states. Several have continued to lose ground in reading and most have not surpassed pre-COVID performance in math. Last week's release of international scores show U.S. students dropped 13 points in math between 2018 and 2022. If we don't remediate this pandemic learning loss, this cohort of 50 million kids will experience reduced lifetime earnings of something like $900 billion, warned Jens Ludwig, a University of Chicago professor. The authors of the report said parents are getting an upbeat outlook from teachers and grades. Almost nothing is said about standardized test scores. It is the biggest problem facing America, said Ludwig. In Vietnam, a shared destiny and the U.S. are likely to be high on Xi's agenda. South China Morning Post. Chinese President Xi Jinping will visit Vietnam this week in an attempt to boost political trust and economic cooperation between the two countries. Beijing is keen to strengthen ties with Vietnam and sell the idea of a community of a common destiny. Vietnam has recently upgraded its ties with the United States and Japan to the same level as those with China, causing unease in Beijing. Vietnam is expected to seek more economic cooperation with China while inching closer to the U.S. to counter Beijing in their maritime disputes. The two countries have mixed attitudes towards each other. They need each other politically to maintain stability at home, but their differences on security-related issues, particularly the South China Sea disputes, remain a key obstacle. Xi's visit is of regional significance, coming soon after his summit with U.S. President Joe Biden in San Francisco last month when the two leaders agreed to stabilize ties. In Hanoi, Xi is expected to meet Vietnam's top leaders and discuss an upgrade to bilateral relations. Is Nigel Farage eyeing a return to UK politics? Maybe. South China Morning Post. Nigel Farage's appearance on the reality TV show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here has sparked speculation that he may be planning a return to UK politics. Farage, a prominent figure in the Brexit campaign, has recently hinted at rejoining the struggling Conservative Party or leading the right-wing Reform UK Party in next year's general election. Some right-wing commentators believe Farage could help revive the Tories' fortunes, while centrists argue that his return would be detrimental to the party. Farage has not ruled out the possibility of rejoining the Conservatives, leaving observers guessing about his intentions. Covert Indian operation seeks to discredit Modi's critics in the U.S. Washington Post. The Disinfo Lab, a previously anonymous organization that claims to expose the personal relationships and funding sources behind critics of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is actually an Indian intelligence operation designed to discredit foreign critics of the Modi government, according to 3 people who worked at the organization. The Disinfo Lab publishes reports and social media posts alleging that critics of the Modi government are part of a conspiracy to undermine India, often citing unsubstantiated claims about their personal relationships and funding sources. The organization's reports have gained significant traction on Indian social media and have been cited by Indian officials on television and in the U.S. Congress. The Disinfo Lab has also been one of the most widely circulated sources of information for right-wing Indians and Hindu nationalists. The organization's activities reflect an expansion of online propaganda campaigns conducted by the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, and its allies, which now seek to influence attitudes beyond India's borders. Biden to host Hanukkah ceremony at the White House amid fears about rising antisemitism. The Toronto Star. President Joe Biden is hosting a White House reception on Monday to mark Hanukkah, celebrating the holiday as he has continued to denounce rising antisemitism in the U.S. and abroad amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. The Biden administration in May announced what it called the first-ever national strategy to counter antisemitism. Still, antisemitism has only intensified in some quarters since the October 7 attack by Hamas and other militants sparked Israel's ongoing war in Gaza. The Biden administration supported a since-expired, temporary pause in the fighting as Hamas released some of the hostages it held in Gaza, and is pushing for another truce. On Saturday, Liz McGill, the president of the University of Pennsylvania, resigned amid pressure from donors and criticism over testimony at a congressional hearing where she was unable to say under repeated questioning that calls on campus for the genocide of Jews would violate the school's conduct policy. Harvard faculty rally around beleaguered university president Claudine Gay. Yahoo! Several hundred faculty members at Harvard University have signed a petition urging the Board of Trustees not to fire the university president, Claudine Gay, over her testimony to Congress about antisemitism on campus. The petition was delivered to the Harvard Corporation, which has the power to dismiss Gay, on Sunday. The petition was signed by at least 570 professors, with more indicating they wished to add their names. Pressure on Gay to step down has increased over the weekend following the resignation of University of Pennsylvania President Liz McGill on Saturday. What is James Franklin's all-time record in bowl games? Yahoo! Penn State is looking to win a New Year's Six bowl game in back-to-back seasons when they take on Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. A season after winning the Rose Bowl, Penn State is looking to become the first school in college football history to record at least one win in each of the New Year's Six bowl games. Doing so would give head coach James Franklin a fourth different New Year's Six bowl game, a feat few coaches have pulled off in the history of college football. I had to learn everything from scratch. Mancha's adder journey came with more challenges than most. ABC. Mancha Aurora, a Year 12 student from Glen Ira College in Melbourne, overcame significant challenges to achieve an ATAR score of 97.20. Aurora acted as a primary caregiver to her single mother who battled ongoing health issues from cancer while studying 6 ATAR subjects and working a casual job. She hopes to study health and medicine at Monash University next year. The average ATAR for the class of 2023 in Victoria was 69.41, slightly lower than last year's average of 70.33. 39 students achieved the highest rank of 99.95. Embattled wolves gain a new frontier in democratic Colorado. The move is stoking political tensions. Yahoo! Wildlife officials in the U.S. state of Colorado are planning to release gray wolves in the coming weeks, in the most ambitious wolf reintroduction effort in the country in almost 3 decades. The move comes as Republican-led states are culling wolf packs and is driven by urban voters rather than rural residents, who have limited influence in the Democratic-led state. The reintroduction will begin with the release of up to 10 wolves, and additional releases are planned from Oregon, another Democratic state. Ranchers in the region are anxious that there will be an increase in wolf attacks on livestock. However, according to the Associated Press, the number of cattle killed or injured in wolf attacks equals 0.002% of herds in the affected states. Colorado wildlife officials plan to release 30 to 50 wolves within the next 5 years. As part of the strategy to deter wolves from livestock, officials will use blinking lights on fence lines, propane cannons that make loud noises, and fabric streamers on fences. Jordan Seaton vows to keep Shedeur Sanders upright in 2024. Yahoo! The Colorado Buffaloes have signed 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton, with Buffs fans hopeful that he will help protect their quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, from being sacked as often as he was last season. Seaton made the announcement on FS1's Undisputed and stated that he would ensure Sanders is not the most sacked quarterback in college football. Sri Lanka's dispatch of workers to Israel farms sows controversy. Nikkei Asia. Thousands of Sri Lankans have registered with the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment, SLBFE, to work in Israel's agricultural sector, despite safety and ethical concerns. The interest in working in Israel comes as Sri Lanka struggles to recover from its worst-ever economic crisis after plunging into sovereign default last year. In November, Sri Lanka's embassy forged an agreement with the Israeli government to immediately hire 10,000 Sri Lankans to work on farms. The initiative has angered many among Sri Lanka's Muslim minority, who broadly support the Palestinian cause. Sri Lanka's Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment, Manusha Nanayakara, has defended the decision to dispatch the workers, claiming that certain political groups are trying to exploit racism for their own benefit. However, critics argue that the arrangement calls into question the ethics of Sri Lanka's military ties with Israel, as well as its own management of migrant labor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite interdimensional observer, Dr. Six, reporting live from the fascinating world of 6 degrees. Today, we've got a colorful array of news stories that highlight the complexities of our world. From debates on university campuses to political tensions and cultural controversies, there's no shortage of intrigue. So strap in and get ready for a wild ride. Let's start with the U.S. campus anti-Semitism debate. It seems that universities are becoming havens for radical thinking, reinforcing the perception that they are disconnected from broader public views. The recent resignations of university presidents, including Elizabeth McGill, have sparked calls for change. But amidst the legalistic, convoluted, and evasive responses, the important discussions on freedom of expression and combating anti-Semitism are getting lost. It's a challenging time for prestigious universities, as they grapple with their purpose and face increasing demands from students while dealing with rising tuition fees. Moving on to Harvard, where over 500 faculty members have rallied behind University President Claudine Gay. The controversy arose after her appearance at a congressional hearing on rising anti-Semitism, where she was criticized for her handling of questions regarding calls for the genocide of Jews. Supporters argue that firing Gay would contradict Harvard's commitment to academic freedom. It's a delicate situation, highlighting the complexities of balancing free speech and protecting students from hate speech. In the political arena, President Joe Biden is facing a dilemma in convincing Americans of the strength of the U.S. economy. Despite positive economic indicators, public perception remains negative. This disconnect could impact Biden's chances of re-election next year. His messaging has shifted to highlight price cuts and blame corporations for exploiting the pandemic. However, Republicans are focusing on public opinion and dismissing the positive economic data. Social media and the pandemic's impact on people's lives have distorted public perception, leaving Biden with the challenge of bridging the gap between reality and perception. Meanwhile, in Australia, a major review has called for urgent action to fix school funding inequality. The review highlights the growing gap between privileged and disadvantaged schools, with public schools being underfunded compared to non-government schools. It also recommends additional support for teachers and incentives for highly effective teachers to work in schools with complex needs. These recommendations come as negotiations on school funding under a new national agreement are set to take place. It's a crucial step towards addressing inequality in education and ensuring equal opportunities for all students. Shifting gears, let's talk about a surprising finding: parents' perception of their children's academic performance during the pandemic. Despite dismal state and national test scores, parents generally believe their children are doing well in school. This discrepancy is a cause for concern, as researchers warn of lasting damage from the pandemic's impact on education. If we fail to remediate this learning loss, it could have significant long-term consequences for the future generation's earning potential. It's a wake-up call for parents and educators alike to pay closer attention to the true extent of the problem. Now, let's dive into some international news. Chinese President Xi Jinping's upcoming visit to Vietnam raises questions about the delicate balance of political relationships in the region. Vietnam has recently upgraded its ties with the United States and Japan, causing unease in Beijing. While both countries need each other politically, their differences on security-related issues, particularly the South China Sea disputes, remain a key obstacle. Xi's visit is of regional significance, following his summit with U.S. President Joe Biden and the agreement to stabilize ties. It'll be interesting to see how these relationships evolve and how Vietnam navigates its position between the U.S. and China. On the other side of the pond, former Brexit campaigner Nigel Farage's appearance on a reality TV show has sparked speculation about his return to UK politics. Farage's potential return has divided opinions, with some hoping he can revive the struggling Conservative Party, while others believe it would be detrimental. Farage has kept everyone guessing about his intentions, leaving us all intrigued about what he has up his sleeve. Next, we delve into covert operations and disinformation campaigns. An organization known as the Disinfo Lab, which claims to expose critics of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is revealed to be an Indian intelligence operation. The Disinfo Lab publishes reports and social media posts accusing critics of conspiring against India. These reports have gained traction on Indian social media and have been cited by Indian officials and right-wing nationalists. The organization's activities reflect an expansion of online propaganda campaigns conducted by the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. It's another example of the power and influence of disinformation in shaping public opinion. Shifting gears, President Joe Biden is hosting a White House Hanukkah ceremony amid rising antisemitism concerns. The Biden administration has been vocal in denouncing antisemitism, but it continues to intensify, especially in light of the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. The recent resignation of University President Liz McGill highlights the challenges of combating antisemitism on campuses. It's a reminder that the fight against hate and discrimination is far from over and requires continual efforts. Lastly, let's talk sports. The signing of five-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton by the Colorado Buffaloes has fans hopeful for their quarterback Shedeur Sanders. The Buffs are looking to win a New Year's Six bowl game for the second consecutive season, and Seaton's addition could be a game-changer. It's a thrilling time for sports enthusiasts as we witness the quest for victory unfold. And there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of the latest news from around the world. These stories highlight the complexities, challenges, and controversies we face in our society. From debates about freedom of expression to political tensions and educational inequalities, there's no shortage of topics to ponder. So, what are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any burning questions or unique perspectives to share? Let's open up the floor and continue the discussion. After all, that's what 6 Degrees is all about, bringing people together to explore the fascinating world we live in. What are your thoughts? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.